to get a chance to share your stuff, so I appreciate you making the journey. The business of strength and conditioning is what I'm going to try and cover a little bit, and I guess there's a few things a few kind of angles that I take on business of strength and conditioning. Firstly, I think the industry's changing. I think that there's a lot more people that are actually opening up commercial strength and conditioning facilities, and it's becoming a viable route for people out there now. I think secondly, institutions and organisations are trying to putting pressure on us as strength and conditioning coaches to bring in external funding, and part of our roles is ring fencing money and saying we need to generate income. So certainly a lot of the university environments are doing that, but also I think that irrespective of that, if you're working in a pro environment, if you're working as an employee strength and conditioning coach, I think you still got to view your career development as a business, as a progression, and your personal development is kind of like that as well. So I'm going to try and cover three things today. I've got some cool pictures, but nothing as fancy as Simon's final slide, so apologies for that. And I'm going to try and rattle through. It's 22. I guess we're getting kicked out at 9.
9 o'clock.
Before all stuff fails, we'll hook it up to my cigarette lighter in the car and just carry it in the car park. But I'm going to try and cover three things. This one is, I don't like the word networking, because for me it implies like an agenda. You know, you've got to try and do something out of this meeting. I think just relationship building and communicating is one thing. The second thing that Mark kind of asked me to touch on is innovation or innovative techniques in business strength and conditioning. I don't really know much about that, but I'm going to try and touch on some of the things that have worked for me. And then lastly, just some things that I feel, my belief is that they've helped me kind of climb the ladder a little bit over the last sort of 10 years of working in strength and conditioning in one way or another. But first things first, in the spirit of following Simon's talk, we're going to start with a little pop quiz. So my question to you is, what connects the following professions? So here, this slide represents our profession: coaching, strength and conditioning, athletic development, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so you're looking for a link between these. So this is strength and conditioning. Second thing, this is a boardroom. This is a corporate environment. This is whatever, finance, whatever it is. So that's the second thing. Third thing is this little fella here. So this guy is representative of like services. He's clearly a gardener. Okay. So what's that? Anyone got any thoughts? Any connections between the three? It's not like rocket science. It's quite obvious with the title of the talk and stuff.
They're all generating capital.
They're all generating capital, yeah. Any other thoughts? I'm sorry to tell you. It's getting too late, isn't it? You've got to get out of it. So for me, this is the key to success in all of those three. So in all of those three things, S&C, gardening, whatever, there's an underpinning skill set that's required. But over the top of all those is they're all about forming and building relationships. Our relationships with our athletes and support team, our relationships with our investors and stakeholders, really, really important for us. And the same with all the other professions. They've still got to have that relationship, and relationship building is key. And I think that we are actually more of a communications industry. We've got to communicate effectively to get the results and the desired effects that we want. And I think this sums it up. It's, I'm super simple. I'm certainly not the smartest person in this room, and I like simple things. And this diagram here just says it all. So it's a message and feedback loop. This is what communication is all about. And I think that if we're not getting good feedback for our programs, we should take some time to look at the messages we're giving out, rather than point the finger. So I think that it works really simply. The messages you give out, the signals that the instructions that we give to our athletes, we'll get feedback from that, we'll get results. And also in our kind of personal sort of branding and the way we put ourselves out there, we get feedback, and we should learn from the feedback and not kind of point the finger. So it's always looking for the positive. So it's a communications industry, and this slide I borrowed from Vern Gambetta, just so it's legit on the camera. And I like the way he says it. It's not about X's and O's, it's about Jimmy's and Joe's. It's a communication, it's a relationship building endeavour that we're going through. And we've got to keep remembering that. We've got to keep that at the forefront. Underpinning everything is your program, sure, but over the top of everything is the relationships. And for me, this is a fine balance. I wrote a short piece of article about programming versus people, and I think that it's a fine balance. And you know, my personal journey, I'm 30 now, half Simon's, no, sorry, it's different. But I've got like 10 years in the industry, and when I first came out of university, fresh-faced, I thought I knew it all, and everything I did was about, I've got to get the program right, I've got to get the sets and reps right, I've got to monitor this, I've got to challenge that, I've got to, you know, it's all about strength, power, fitness, endurance, the physical qualities. And as I've developed and kind of had more exposure and more experience with different organisations, I've realised it's a lot more about the people that are involved in that, and it's balancing what you feel is right with what they need, with what they like, and what you can get from a buy-in perspective. There's no such thing as a perfect program. There's only an appropriate program, a program that is appropriate for that athlete or client at that stage of their development. So it's really important to keep that at the forefront. And these are a group that I've just started working with very recently. Came through a colleague of ours. You know, there's the networking side here, and it was all about relationships. This is the GB Women's Goalball squad. I went to Turkey with the European Championships a couple of weeks ago. And I think that, firstly, there's a couple of things I want to say on this. Working with sort of, if you like, the less fortunate governing bodies that pose challenging problems is a great way for us as coaches to get better. They're all visually impaired. That poses communication challenges. That poses a lot of difficulties and problems for me to solve, to be creative and innovative in my approach. So I always say to people, if you ever get a chance to work with a different sport, either a disability sport or just a sport you've never had an opportunity to work with, I think it's a great thing to do as a developing coach. And I talked to Dan about it the other day with a chuck ball. I never even heard of chuck ball. So it's a problem you've got to solve going in there. But I think that balancing this is key. And I was speaking to one of my old assistants, Russell Jolly, who has a gym now in Bournemouth. And he was Bournemouth head of S&C, and he's done a few other contracts. And he'd not got 2 or 3 jobs that he'd been for in the last 6 months. And we were just talking on the phone, and he said to me, you know, what do you think, how do you think I should take it forward? And I said, well, what's the feedback you've been given from the message you've given off? And they said, well, he said, the feedback's great, they just said I'm really competent, it's just not the right time for me. So he's prioritised the programme. But I gave him some advice, and I just said, well, maybe you should be prioritising the relationships that surround that job, and going for and speaking and interacting with the people that have an involvement with the sports that you want to move into. I think as coaches, from a career development perspective, we've got to balance that out, our time and our dedication to getting the sets and reps right versus the relationships and the networks that we're kind of trying to move into right. Because most of us want to work and improve our own development. And by doing that, we need exposure to athletes. So you can't just concentrate on the program, you've got to concentrate on getting the opportunities to get better. So it's a fine balance and a kind of a sliding scale. And if you're not getting those opportunities, it might be because you're putting all your eggs in this basket and not in that basket. So, rushing through, I just want to kind of go through 8 things that have helped me personally. Certainly, you know, I've got a hell of a lot to learn. It's a process. We're all in, you know, on that journey. But these things are just things that I've picked up that have helped me build, I guess, my business and my consultancy, as well as just helping in general. And this is kind of taken from the stuff that I've been doing with strength and conditioning education. And there was no agenda with this; it just grew. But now it's it's my business. It's a really thriving educational kind of deliverer of coach development and coach education stuff. And growing this has been a challenge for me, and I've learned a lot. And also these lessons are just taken from the athletes that I've coached as well, and looking at how they do things well, and the best coaches I've worked with. So 8 steps. So the first one is effective communication. You've got to be a good communicator, you've got to do it effectively. But what does that actually mean? And where's the innovation here? And I think there's a few things that we can look at that you know, modern technology and the 21st century communication is requiring, but I also think it's just not moved on that much. I think effective communication is very, very simple. And this slide is quite informative. Again, borrowed from Vern Gambetta, but a study was done on John Wooden. People come across him before? Alleged to be one of the best coaches that's ever been around. Loads of books been written on the Wooden method and stuff like that. And these guys studied him and they spent like a week with him. And what they found was 2,300 acts of teaching, of which it was split up into these components. So compliments, expressions of authority or discipline, but actually 3/4 of every single thing he said was pure information. That's effective. And they also observed that they were all short, they were punctuated and varied. So if one didn't work, try another one. Remember the feedback loop? If you don't get the right feedback, change the message. And within that as well, they were rarely longer than 20 seconds. So short, punctuated, numerous, varied, different messages for different people. So I think this is a really good model of how to communicate effectively as a coach. But looking at today's communication, what's that all about? So these two pictures, I just robbed them off the internet. This is Twitter, and I actually think that Twitter is quite a good teacher for us as coaches, because you're forced to put your message into 140 characters. So if you're trying to educate people, it's training you to do that. And I think that's a really good outlet for us as coaches to pick up information from other coaches, from scientists. Information on Twitter, or information in general, is very often put out on Twitter before it's out anywhere. So if you're not on Twitter, you're missing the boat. This is Facebook as well. And I think obviously Facebook, everybody knows what that is, but you know, people check Facebook before they get out of bed on a daily basis. If you're trying to get a message out, or you're trying to communicate, your athletes are on this, your coaches are on this, and they're probably on this taking a dump in the morning, checking on Facebook. So it's a great opportunity to get your message into somebody else's kind of environment. Blogging is also something that has really helped to build my business and help me communicate effectively. And you know, I started my blog years ago, and it's a reflexive process for me. It's a habit. I write it, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 times a week, and it's in my kind of timetable now. I don't really have an option. It's just one of those things that you do. But it's become a reflexive process, and I think for coaches it's quite helpful to our development. And the reasons why are that you've got to reflect on what you do and what you think and what you believe, one, but you get publicly critiqued on what you do. And I think when you put yourself out there in the public domain and you open yourself up to feedback, you're a little bit vulnerable, it helps you and makes you better as a coach. And it's a great learning tool as well. You know, I believe a lot of top coaches out there, they write great blogs. You've got Vern Gambetta, you've got Kelvin Giles, to name 2 real pioneers. We were talking about Ross Tucker today, writes a blog. You know, a lot of people now put information out there, and I can only say from my business perspective, I don't just mean my education business, just my business in general, my consultancy, my development, it's helped me. My coaches, technical coaches, read stuff that I put out there, and I signpost them to it, and I drip feed them information to try and change their practice and their views of programming as well. It's a slow burner, but it has helped me. But your communication has to be the right message at the right time. I don't know if you can read that. I was looking through the internet today. It's quite political, but quite funny. But it's sometimes the message that you feel is right, and the information that you're trying to give out as a coach, the client, the athlete, whoever it is, they're just not ready for it. So you've got to change your message and get different feedback. It goes back to that loop. Real simple. And Simon talked about technology today. Technology is just not always the answer. I don't know if you can read that. It's quite amusing. So technology doesn't solve the problems all the time, and that's where You know, networking, relationship building, sometimes we're better off sitting in front and talking face to face to people. You can't replace a conversation in person and an opportunity to form and build a relationship and nurture a relationship with your athletes or your clients or potential clients. So the second thing is that building relationships, and this is pretty cool. Like when you first meet people, you get their words, you get their body language, you get their tone, but it's only through time, and I think probably I would add in a concerted effort on our behalf and their behalf to give things away, that you actually get into what is really important, their beliefs, their values, their aspirations, their feelings. When we talk about coaching, this is not even business, this is just coaching. Building relationships is really just a key part of my own journey, and something that I put more time into now than I ever have before, and it has paid dividends. And there's no agenda there, it's just getting results and allowing things to happen. The third thing is just giving stuff with no real agenda. You know, if you've got passion for what you do, you're more than happy to help out and give people feedback. And I write my blog, I do my podcast, I do pretty much everything I do for nothing, for very little. There's no agenda. I started it because I wanted to. I started it because I had a passion for it. And I think if you've got that agenda, that's why I don't like the word networking, because it implies if I meet you, I'm going to get something. That's not the case. I think you just got to have the passion for what you do and just do it. And then kind of good things tend to happen. The fourth thing that's really helped me is actually forgetting strength and conditioning and forgetting athletic development and looking outside our industry. When we want to get people stronger, we look at the best people, we look at the strongest people in the world, like Westside Barbell, like Andy Bolton, and we look at what they're doing and how we can apply it in our own domains. When we want to get better at communicating, we should be looking outside our industry at people that communicate the best and how we can learn. You know, we're really good at sitting in the room talking about sets and reps, but perhaps we should be looking at what psychologists are doing, what other sports science disciplines are doing, what marketing people are doing, what communications companies are doing to communicate their message effectively. So that's really helped me. And this, marketing, is the biggest swear word in strength and conditioning. Everybody comes back with, I'm not a marketer, I'm a coach. And that's fair, and I have to say that's what I have said that before. I've echoed that, especially in the early days of my career. And I think it's nonsense, because I think nobody gets out of bed and nobody kind of gets into this industry to be great at advertising or marketing. But there's a lot of us that get into this industry to help people and to make a difference. And I think, how can you help the most people? You can get your message to the most people. And what is getting your message to the most people all about? It's about having an understanding of marketing and communication effectively. So I think that these days, marketing is key. Whether you have a commercial business, or whether you work as an institution, or whether you work as a full-time employed S&C coach in a professional sport, you've still got to promote yourself and get your message out there. So for me, I think that you've got to embrace this. You've got to embrace it. So the next few things are things that are kind of like personal development stuff. It gets a little bit sort of crazy now. So the fifth thing is pick yourself. Now, I looked outside our industry and came across a blogger and a communications guy called Seth Godin. People come across him before? Really do check his stuff out. And he talks about this concept called pick yourself. And really, he's basically saying, once you accept that nobody's going to come across and pick you and say, you're doing a great job, we're going to promote you to head of strength and conditioning here. Once you accept that nobody's going to do that, then you accept that you actually have to pick yourself. You have to make yourself into the person that is chosen and puts things forward and really make that happen. So when talk about message, right timing of the right message, when I came across that article, it was just like, it's a realisation. And I had a conversation with our American footballers today, a guy that I've been training, he's got a scholarship in Colorado, and he was saying the same. He went out there last year, nobody was there to help him. They expected world-class coaches to be working one-on-one with him. They weren't. They expected him to put himself forward and be in the right condition. He wasn't. He was miles behind. And it was a realisation for him that it's all on him. And I think as coaches we've got to realise that it's all on us. If we want to develop, we've got to develop ourselves. Another thing here, be a purple cow. Right, now before I start losing you on crazy stuff, let me just explain. So if you're driving down a country lane and you see a field full of cows, you're just going to drive right on. Right? If you suddenly see a purple one, you're going to slam the brakes on and you're going to be like, so it's a purple cow. And the metaphor, this is another Seth Godin thing, the metaphor is that we've got to be that purple cow. We've got to be good enough that people say, okay, he's good. And it's about being remarkable. Alright, now remarkable is, like excellent, it's very, very good at what you do, but it's also, you're worthy of a remark being given to somebody else. He's excellent. You've got to work with him. So very good is not good enough anymore. You've got to be remarkable. You've got to be this guy. You've got to have people slamming the brakes on to work with you. Couple more things. Innovation. A lot of people say, I'm not very creative, I don't have any ideas. But I think when you have a need to create and there is something imposed on you, there's a problem that you have to solve, then anyone can do it. So how do you make yourself better as a coach at being innovative and having ideas and solving problems? You pick yourself and you put yourself in a sport like a minority sport, like goalball, like whatever the hell it is, and you make yourself solve the problems and you make yourself be innovative. So anybody can do that. I'm not creative or I don't have any ideas. It just doesn't wash. And the last thing that I think is really important for, and I've seen all like my interns that have gone on to work in full-time environments and all the people around me, and then you read books and you look at the best athletes, they have this. They go all in. They just do it. They don't question it. If they have to work for free, they work for free. But they go all in. And I look at the guys around me now in the gym, and I just look at them every day and I just think, you're absolutely going on all in. Your ball's out. You're making it happen. And that's really, really important. It's certainly something that I believe if you've got the passion and you've got the drive, you just need to just go for it. Okay? And I thought I'd finish on a really good quote. If you want to be successful, it's simple. Know what you're doing, love what you're doing, and most importantly, believe in what you're doing. Belief is more important than the truth sometimes, or the proof. So I've rocketed through that actually. I've rocketed through that. I got out a good time. Last slide. If in doubt, just do something, and then you learn from doing. It's not about thinking. And I think the most successful people that I've ever been around, athletes, coaches, people in business, and I've tried to find out from all over the place, the time it takes from them to have the idea, the thought, and putting that idea into action is tiny, it's small. And that's, I believe, one of the key things that separates really successful athletes, coaches and people from average people. Don't want to be average. Okay? So, thank you for listening. I've enjoyed presenting my stuff.
Do you have any questions from anyone while we're here?
I'm more than happy to answer anything before we get kicked out.
We have everybody anyway, so we might as well get the questions in.
Yeah.
Any questions at all? It must have been that.
Well, I put them together in a rush today, and I know that there's kind of a lot of stuff that I've covered, so if you do want to ask anything, just get in touch on Twitter.